Hi, and welcome to the last session of our inaugural virtual assembly training series. My name is Claire Roberts, and I'm a member of the Rotary Club of La Miranda Sunrise, and I currently serve as the district trainer for our district, and I'll be the moderator for today's session. And at this point, I would like to introduce District Governor-elect Mark Roberts.
Good afternoon, fellow District 5160 Rotarians, and welcome to our ultimate, not penultimate, but ultimate session in our virtual district assembly. I'm so glad you could join us this afternoon. We're going to be discussing a topic that really, it seems like it's in the background, but believe me, it's really, really important in terms of how we communicate with each other and how we share information about ourselves and our clubs. And of course, that's DACdb, District and Club Database. That's what most clubs use. That's what the district uses. I know a few clubs use Club Runner, but DACdb is how we get the word out here within 5160. And we have the absolute expert in DACdb presenting today. And I'm also very pleased to say that I don't want to call her a glutton for punishment, but she has agreed to serve as our district communication chair next year during the 2021 Rotary year. And I couldn't be more ecstatic. So it's obvious that I'm talking about my good friend, my wonderful mentor, a member of the Rotary Club of Concord, and our district governor, Tina Akins.
Thank you. That's nice, Mark. Thanks. I do like DACdb. I just like it as I think all of us have to figure out or get to figure out what's our own personal Sudoku puzzle. And for me, it's stuff like this. I just want to figure out how to make it work. I have been playing with this for such a long time. He says I'm an expert. Nah, I just been playing a long time. I was club president in 2011, so it had to have been what, spring of 2011. I was at Pets, and this man named Vic Giorgio came to the hospitality suite, and we were just visiting because I didn't know anybody. And he shows me on his phone that he's got this mobile thing. He's, look, you don't know what DACdb is? Mm-mm. He says, well, look, you can find everybody in here. And he's poking it at it. I said, let me see that. Let me see that. He says he knew then. He said, I just put that little hook in there like this. And I just kept reeling you in because I knew. I said, well, evidently it worked because I do like messing with it. And I like helping other people understand what it is. I have created a slide, a PowerPoint just to kind of keep us on track. But I know from having been the attendee in these sessions, when I click share, your entire screen fills up with the PowerPoint, which I find a little bit boring because I want to see the people too. I found out finally that if I go back to my screen and I make it, Claire, what's it called? It goes from full screen to shrunken. There's a name for it.
Exit full screen.
Yeah,
That's
exit
it.
full screen.
That's it. That's the phrase. It was a test. I was hacked. When you exit the full screen, then you have the ability to have your PowerPoint on a portion and some of the people's Brady Bunch type photos in another part. My dear friend Kathy showed me that I can drag that margin left and right to make the PowerPoint smaller and the real estate associated with the people's photos bigger. I just liked it. It has nothing to do with DACdb. I just thought I'd throw it out there because we're all on Zoom so often. So let me see if I can share my screen and make this work. So what are we going to cover? A district communications chair is it's the person who decided that their Rotary service is helping others figure out how to communicate better. Well, why? Because communication is so vital to everything that we're doing. It's the underpinnings for taking our ideas and sharing them and getting work done. I don't think it's any more complicated than that. So what's DACdb and why do you care? We'll talk about what your responsibility is both as a club member and as a club leader, and maybe a couple words about what are the next steps to learn more things. The objectives for today's class: to understand what it is, to review the reasons why it's important. I'd like you to be able to at least log in and help others in your club to log in. I'd like for you to be able to update your own information, have a knowledge of what it is, what some basic tools are available, and the biggest one, once you have an introduction to all the things that it can do, where are you going to go for help? So what is DACdb? The letters are dumb. It's district and club database. The man that owns the company, Mark, I forget Mark's last name. Mark says, look, I bought the company years ago. I bought it with this name. I think it's dumb too. I'm stuck with it. So thus DACdb. Now this is a business enterprise. This is a for-profit business that sells database services to Rotary clubs and Rotary districts around the world. Our district uses it across the board for district communication and district data. Most clubs do too. Your club writes a check to the district for district dues every year. From that, we pay DACdb. So I can tell you it's free for your club, but you know, that's kind of stretching the truth. You're paying for it in a roundabout way. Less than a handful of clubs don't use DACdb as their primary communication tool. They use Club Runner typically. Maybe I think there's 3 right now. I will never tell you that DACdb is better or worse than Club Runner. What I'll tell you is that when we make the decision for us all to use DACdb, it gives us an opportunity to share information with each other and learn from each other. And for those few outliers that are using something else, I think you're already buying DACdb, now you're buying the service from Club Runner, and you don't have as many friends around you to help you learn it. And that really is my only reason for preferring one over the other. A really cool thing is that DACdb is linked to RI. When I go into my own personal data and let's say I update my email address, the information flows to my RI database, corrects it there, and I don't have to correct both databases. I only have to do one. Kind of neat. So how do we use it? What kinds of information is in there? Well, the personal information includes our contact info primarily. Then there's some data like start date, birthdays, lots of optional stuff, hobbies, where I work. Then there's club information. When did you charter? Where do you meet? Some basic information like, oh, well, that would be basic. Where do you meet? When? What's your website address? Things that are associated with clubs specifically. Committees are a gathering of names in an effort to be able to communicate better with those committees. Committees can be at the district level or the club level, but how did they even get formed? The day that you, Ralph, became president-elect of your club and your club secretary or I put president-elect next to your name, it put you into that committee. So sometimes it's by the role that's assigned to you. Also, a club or a district can just take a group of names, put them together, and call it a committee. I can give you a perfect example that has nothing to do with what we'll call Rotary work. I take all the people who are signed up to go to the international convention, and I'm going to call it the convention committee. Why? So I can email them all, so I can tell them about the social, so I can say, hey, this is what we're doing. So it's just a way of collecting names so that we can communicate better, which is, you know, the idea. The other thing that DACdb has in it is the calendar. Now the calendar tells you when and what time and where. It also is where all of our registrations are. And I know that you know about registrations because you had to register to get this link to come to this Zoom class. And I lost my place. Give me just a second. I told you about the convention, about how the district, oh, our district uses DACdb for so many things. Communication to groups, to committees, for registrations, for the calendar. How about for those in your club who have a youth protection certification? Where do we keep that list? DACdb. How about pulling the information out of DACdb to create the district directory? It's all there. It's just a matter of getting it in and getting it out. How do clubs use it? Well, it kind of depends. When I was at the Dunsmuir board meeting and I said, well, do you have a newsletter? No. How do you communicate with your club members? And they patiently explained, well, it's a pretty small town. We just see each other at the grocery store. I mean, they don't really, they don't need the newsletter as much as a club that has 200 members in it. You would be able to picture more easily how they need a different kind of communication to get that information out there. What if your club had 20 members? Do you suppose you just have all their phone numbers in your phone? Yeah. What if your club was way bigger? Would you? Maybe not. So how a club uses personal data, like contact information in DACdb, I think has everything to do with who the club is, what size they are, what are they trying to keep track of, and how do they want to communicate it. I have a, I guess it's a story. I had to have been very new in Rotary, and yeah, I don't think yeah, it was pretty new. The club secretary was kind enough to have put my correct information in DACdb. So when past district governor Brian Thiessen sent out a email and it says, hey, I'm going to India. I'm going to go and distribute polio drops. Want to go? That email, I am convinced, changed my life. I wasn't keeping my DACdb data accurate. I didn't even know what it was. How crucial then was it that my club leaders, how life-changing was it that my club leaders took care of my information on my behalf? How fascinating is it that because of DACdb, I got to do what I got to do? It's, yeah, I think DACdb is important. What else is in it? Calendar, registrations, reports. You could imagine that if there is a database, that the ability to pull data out of it and slice it and dice it in all these different ways becomes really helpful. So there's lots of different reports and some secret wonderful things I can tell you about later for how to use it. There's Pmail. I always get asked, what's Pmail? Personal email. There's RI Compare. I told you about how a club secretary can compare Rotary International's information with DACdb's information and see where the differences are and then know what to question and what to fix. There are newsletters. Many clubs in our district use the DACdb module to create newsletters. And there's grants. Our district, a couple years ago, chose to use DACdb as the tool for gathering data for all of our district grants. It's turned out to be really effective. Does it affect all of you on this call? No. My point is only this, that there are lots of tools doing a lot more than we can ever imagine. There's even a couple extra things. Now, DACdb is a, remember I told you, it's a for-profit business in the business of selling databases to Rotary clubs and districts. They also offer a couple extra things that a club could choose to buy, and many clubs do. There's two different kinds of websites. There's what used to be called attendance, and now it's called engagement tracking, to track the hours that your club members are out doing service. There's a finance package that kind of resembles QuickBooks, except it's based on a Rotary club's needs. And then there's a DACdb plugin. A plugin, it turns out, is the ability for you to have your very own completely different website. It has to be WordPress, and you can buy this thing so that DACdb's information flows into your website. Information like what? Well, the calendar information. We'll see some examples. Maybe the pictures of your club's officers you want it on your club's website. Before we start to log in, will you take a moment and go to your chat box and tell Claire, please, do you know how to log into DACdb? Who am I working with? People that have been there often, got it, or never been there? And Claire, tell me what kinds of answers you're seeing. Are you reading?
A lot of yeses.
Okay.
A couple of no's, and one person who said barely.
All right. Then I'm going to maybe go a little faster than I might have if I was working with all folks who had never been there. You know then, many of you, that this screen is where you start. All right, but well, let's pretend the fields are all blank. I don't remember, I know my username, but I don't remember my password. Well, then you would want to click on that, see where it says forgot password at the bottom? And if you did, you'd get to this. Well, if you forgot your password, this is how you can reset it. Just tell us your username. I don't know my username. I don't know anything. I just finished telling you. I know nothing. Then what? You would have to turn to your club officer, someone in your club, your secretary, and say, look, just send me everything. I got to start from scratch. They're going to go to your profile in DACdb, and they're going to click that button right there that says email login to user. Want to see what you're going to get? Dear Tina S. Akins, try this. And then here's your username. And the email can't contain your password. So you get, or if you're helping someone else, the username and an ability to reset their password. This turns out to be really useful. And I don't know if I can go backwards, but it's on the profile, like if you were going to edit somebody's profile, and it's on the login tab. So I got an email. I have a username. I finally reset my password, or I had to ask somebody to help me. When I've got it all done, what's the most important thing I could do? Click that box that says, remember me, so I don't have to do it again next time. Now I'm in. Now I've got my information kind of correct. Oh, now they've promoted me to club secretary because, you know, I know how to log into DACdb, so I must be an expert, right? How do we as club leaders get people's information correct? I mean, we all know, you guys know as well as I do, that there are folks in your clubs who are not going to be able to edit their information electronically. When I was working on DACdb with my club, I said, that's okay. I don't really mind the pencil method. So I sent out a template asking people to look at their information. It looks like this. It's long, so this is only the top of a really long, thin email. I circled those first two parts because those are, I could edit them. So when I send it out, I didn't say, dear Rotarian, you know, Mark. I said, you know, dear Mark, hey, I told you at last Friday's meeting that I was going to send you this. If you're not willing to do it electronically, do you remember I told you just print it, fix the things with a pencil, and give it back to me next Friday? My point is, I can change that. DACdb has created a template for you to start with. You could use it. You could change it. So now I am looking at my own information and I think, all right, well, it's got, yep, I haven't quit work. I don't need to change my email. So far, so good. Now what? At the bottom, there is a button on this template that we send out that gives the user an opportunity to verify, and the secretary can see who did, or edit. My suggestion is that this should be sent out to club members at least once a year. And some will return it, some won't, but at least reminds people that they have a responsibility to keep this stuff accurate. Once it's edited, once you've fixed everything, what does it look like? Well, if we go to the home page for a club and go to that tab, see at the top where it says My Data, and click on it, what if Paul Harris himself clicked on that? What would he see? Well, he'd see this. This is his front profile page. This is where I go all the time to find your phone number or your email or your, I don't know, typically it's your phone number unless I want to mail you something. This is that front page. It shows the, well, let's review. It shows the club name. Paul Harris happens to belong to the guest of the district because we couldn't really put him in a club. It shows his birthday and his anniversary, shows he's been a member since 1905, where he works. You'll also see some of those fields, see where it says hobbies, description, degree, that he didn't fill in. And maybe some club somewhere encourages all their members to fill that in because they use it in some way, but they're just suggestions. Ready for the next topic?
A couple of questions first.
Sure.
What
the
if
next topic's the calendar, so yeah.
Yeah, so what if the error message says that the email doesn't match?
As in, they have the wrong username?
Yes.
Then they will want, Claire, if this is one of the folks on this call, just put their name down on a piece of paper. And at the end of this class, or even if you have time while I'm talking, go to DACdb, pull up their profile. You go to the tab that says login and push that button that says email login to user. They get, you, the user, gets an email that makes it look like somebody wrote to you. They didn't. They just pushed a button. Those usernames are created when the secretary puts you into DACdb as a brand new member. And you will hear people say, oh, it's always your email. It's always your ID number from that sticker on your magazine. No, it's not. That's just that secretary. If you tell me that all secretaries do things exactly the same, I might, disagree. Any more questions?
One person asked a little bit off topic, but if when she's creating a My Rotary account, can she use her DACdb logon, or does she need to create a different logon?
I'm going to answer that with a different question. If I create a login for my Macy's account and my Nordstrom's account, I mean, they're both retail stores, so should I make them the same or different? You do what you want. They might both be associated with your Rotary life, but they're completely different databases. Any more, or should I go to calendars?
That's it for now.
All right. So I said that the calendar was one of the most important things in terms of all the different places where it affects. So where does the calendar show up? I mean, you mean like besides going to the actual calendar in DACdb? In club websites, and I'll show you examples. In club newsletters, and certainly it shows up because of registration links. Like, well, maybe you didn't know that. When you got the email, P-mail, that says, hey, we're having this class, would you like to register? All that goes through the calendar function. Let's look at some different categories. When we go to the calendar in DACdb, this is the top. Wow, that's a lot of categories. I clicked them all because I want to see everything and I want to be able to show you everything. But I could just as easily be looking for only my Concord Club meetings and uncheck everything and then only check club meetings, and it would substantially reduce the number of things I'm seeing on this screen. Let's see how some clubs list their items. We see at the bottom, we see Chico Sunrise and their online auction. And Carl is on this call, so that's his. Here's the, this is a different slide, but all I did was just scroll up, right? Brentwood has a meeting coming up, and they put the speaker name. Berkeley has a meeting coming up, and it's not a club meeting, it's an interest group, and so they told us what it is and who to contact if we would like Zoom information. Well, look down at the bottom. Moraga put their weekly meeting, but there isn't any information about what it is. So who then is the audience? And I submit that the audience is all fellow Rotarians, especially now, because I have an interest in attending this club meeting, because the program chair for this club is a little bit of a, what's it called when you're really, really very good at something? Anyway, he puts in the description of the speaker, and he gives it a title. And the next slide, I'm going to show you where that title goes, like what happens to it. Where did it get linked to? I know it makes you want to go to the meeting, huh? It winds up on their club website. As it turns out, when I go to that website and I see the meetings coming up, if I click on where it says turn me on, dead man, it'll give me more description of what's going on at that meeting because it's pulling it from the calendar. So this calendar is feeding lots of different things. I guess that's my point. Okay, let's go to some, let's just brief review of tools that you can use that's in DACdb. There's the calendar with all the different things that it can do. There's registrations. There's reports. We'll go over reports in a minute. There's PMail. There's RI Compare. Remember I told you from the club data, I can look at RI's information versus the DACdb information, see where the differences are and resolve them. Talked about the newsletters and grants. But the surprise is reports. I am of the opinion that everyone that ever thought of a really cool way to pull information out of DACdb, pulled it out, formatted it, gave it a name, and put it in this long list of reports. You could imagine being in your club and pulling out, I know, you're going to make tent cards for everybody in the club. So isn't it just our DACdb report? First names of everybody in my club, size font 95. Print it sideways on this Word document, presto changeo, it's a report, and somebody saved it and gave it a name. I got so bogged down looking for the right report for my need, I kind of gave up. There's a lot of good stuff there. I'm not knocking it. I just got a little overwhelmed. And then my dear friend Vic Giorgio told me about this one. 12.5 is everything. So, oh, and I didn't make a screenshot of it. Just imagine a whole list of all the data. So I'm going to make the report that I just said. I'm going to click on the box that says first name. I want it in Word, and I just want it for my Concord club. And it dumps in, and I mess with it, and I'm done. You could imagine being a club secretary and making a report that said first name, last name, birth date, and stick it in Excel and sort by the birth date column, and presto, you have a list of birth dates sorted by month. What else? Oh, I know. I'm going to make my own club directory. I'm going to take the information. I could look through here and find different formats that others have invented, or I could just take first name, last name, address. In my directory, I'm going to put email and cell phone. Put it in a Word document and format it and make it 2 columns and print it. It's all there. It's strictly a matter of pulling it out. And I found out that 12.5, I have to format it myself, but I have a lot of control over what I get, and I like that. What I didn't point out to you was where it says club reports at that far left. And you're probably wondering, how do you get to reports? On the home page, whenever you log in, there's all those little icons, those little boxes. One of them says reports. I clicked that, and this is where it brought me. Damn, there's an ant biting me. And my favorite tab, help. When you log on to DACdb, you have different tabs at the top. The help tab has so much in it. There is, let's think of a question. I recently retired. I no longer have my work email. I need to change my email address in my own data. What do I do? Well, I know how to get to the help tab. Well, what would I do next? I'm going to go look over there at the far left. See those ones that I've highlighted? And I find one that says, let's go to member. That's what I'm going to do. And I open up member, and darn if it isn't in there. Now, the truth is, I didn't know where I was going to find it. I had to poke around to make these slides. But it really is just a matter of just messing around with the menus until you find something that looks familiar. And then what's going to happen now? When I click where it says edit email address, it just walks me through it step by step by step. On this help tab, there is also a long list of frequently asked questions, because we all seem to have the same questions. On this help tab, there is, at that far left menu, I clicked on where it said DACdb training, and look what opened up. University, videos, officer training, secretary training. What? Well, the truth is, when I was preparing for this session, I had never been there before. So I clicked on it, secretary training. What am I going to get? It turns out there is a huge amount of information, classes, sorted by topic available for us. Login and password recovery, exactly what I was just going over. Adding and terminating members. I mean, look at all that stuff. It's just, there's so much. Sometimes it's hard to find, but there's a lot there. In conclusion, this is what I hope that you'll take away from this class. DACdb has a lot to offer, more, I think, than we are ever going to use. So it becomes a kind of a, I don't know, an exercise to figure out what it has and what do you need. You remember when you first learned how to use any, Microsoft product like Excel or Word? I might be old enough that mine was Lotus 123, but I'm just saying. Anyway, we had to learn. We were exposed at the beginning to a huge amount of data, and then we learned the parts that matter to us. And just as much, we learned the parts that we can easily, effectively ignore. Kind of like that. There's so much there, and we have to learn what parts matter to us, for our own needs. I can also tell you that this company is so very responsive. There has never been a time when I didn't put in some kind of a support ticket for help and get an answer right away. I also know, because of our having Vic Giorgio in our district, it's often that he says, this should work like this. I don't think you're doing this right. And they listen and they make changes because of our suggestions. I just like them as a company. When you go to that help tab, Rotarian Renee Duddy's phone number and email is on the far right. So if you can log into DACdb and get stuck, you can always start with her. And the other thing I would want to tell you is that your new communications chair really likes texts. And so I have a theory. You are not going to someday say, I really have very little to do. I think I'll study DACdb. I don't believe that's what's going to happen. In fact, what happens is we have a task that we need to complete. Our club president has asked us to do something, or we have a task. We try to complete it, we get stuck, and it is so frustrating, and you know it. What I would hope that you would do is text Renee or text me and say, hey, this is where I am. Do you have time to talk? And you'll get an answer like this. Oh, I have the grandchildren, but I can call you in a half hour. Or I'm at my desk, I'll call you in 2 minutes. Don't wait, because then time goes by and it's just increases your frustration. Our job is to help you to use this tool to your best advantage. And yeah, I think that about sums it up. Now, I know this is very broad overview, but honestly, I think that's what a 101 class is just introducing you to how many things are out there. So let me stop sharing.
Yes.
and
we do have a couple of questions. Can you integrate DACdb with Google Calendar? Can you integrate the DACdb calendar with the Google Calendar?
Yes, but I would call that advanced, and I heard that it was available, and I just said, yeah, I didn't learn, but I bet Vic could help us. So if it was of interest to you, and worth following up, but not something that I know how to do.
Question.
And then Audra said she would like to establish a media calendar to track outreach. Can she do that in a way where that's all she can see on the calendar? So if you want to have a special calendar.
I know that I'm technologically challenged, and so it still makes me laugh that I'm the communications chair, but I didn't understand the question. Do you?
I think Audra wants to create, there's lots of different calendar event type options that you can pick when you put something on the calendar. And I think that Audra's trying to put media events or media reminders onto the calendar. And she wants to know if there's a way to customize the kind of events that you have.
Oh,
Audra, I'm going to unmute. Audra, could you unmute yourself? Am I asking your question correctly?
I think you are, yes. I see that there are so many choices for what you see on the calendar. If I were to take all of those away, can I make just my club's media calendar available there? I don't want the whole district to see it. It's just for us internally with our committee. How do I do that?
I have an answer and I don't know. So it's two parts. Three. If I understand the question correctly, you have pretend a new topic that you'd like as one of those choices at the top. Those choices are district-wide, so it's a district setting. So you would have to convince whoever is, well, in this case, it's Vic and me, honestly. Look, I have this great idea. You should add it, because when we add it for you, we've effectively added it for everybody. Second, can I uncheck everything and make just mine show up? Yes. Can I uncheck everything and make mine just show up for just my DACdb users? In this case, just my club. My guess is no. I'll check with Vic to make sure, but my guess is no. But I don't know how much harm would be if you put things on the calendar that others don't need, because all of us, I put everything there, but all of us who use it filter it for our needs for whatever, whatever suits us for whatever we're trying to accomplish.
So without taking too much time, that was part of my question about integrating with a Google Calendar, because we have a Google account and I can create that easily on a Google account that's just for my club. But to have it integrated somehow, anyway, I don't think the whole district wants to know that we're doing a Facebook post on blah, blah, blah on Tuesday.
Nope, probably not. And probably, you're right, more down in the weeds than this particular class. Any other questions, Claire?
A newsletter question. Is there a way to make links live in a PDA newsletter? Jack, this was your question and you're unmuted. Yes, Jack?
I do the weekly newsletter, and oftentimes there is a link. For example, I use some of the material from RI, and I want to, when I go to DACdb and I go to my system, and I'm making that PDF. When it is finished, it isn't live. It might be written in there. It may be written, but people can't click on it and have it jump to that link.
Jack, I understand the question. The part that if somebody else, actually, I think that the question that you're asking is beyond DACdb, but it is something I bet that somebody on this call could help us with, because what he's asking is, when I create a PDF, can I make the link live? I know that when I create a newsletter in DACdb, I can insert a link, and that's because that somebody's going to see it electronically later and the link is live. I don't know about PDFs.
Well, that's what all of the newsletters are saved as a PDF. Okay, well, I'll keep trying. Thank you for your help.
Thank you.
Nigel, did you have a question?
I was just going to say it's a hyperlink that needs to be inserted, and I think you'd probably have to get that from Adobe. The Adobe website would probably tell you how to do that.
Sure, because
I can help. I can probably help you with that, Jack.
Thank you, Nigel. Thank you, Nigel.
And I find that for a lot of these things, try Googling it. Just type into Google, how do I put a website link in a PDF? And it'll take you to it may take you to a YouTube video or a screen that'll show you how to do it. So I think that's what I do when I'm kind of lost for stuff like that too, Jack.
yeah.
Okay, I'll try that.
Claire, you brought up a good point. And actually this has to do with the first question that we were asked about how do I log into my Rotary using DACdb information. And we in our district in particular use I guess the right word would be vernacular that is sometimes it's hard to follow the meaning of the user, because the user says, well, I went to the district website and I couldn't change my address. And then I have to think, oh yeah, I know what they mean. They mean DACdb. So we Rotarians who like to chase down information electronically go to 3 different places: to DACdb, the database, to RI, which has the public facing Rotary International, and then all the stuff that has to do with our clubs called My Rotary. So there's kind of 2 subsets under RI. And then the third is the district website, Rotary5160.org, where there is a variety different information that's a typical website. So 3. So when we say the district website, I think it's the 5160 website. DACdb is DACdb, and then Rotary International is completely separate as well. And it's a lot to keep track of. Regarding Rotary, Claire said, Google it. Anybody on this screen ever decide, you know what I'm going to do is look for the brand new logo for this year's theme, and I'm going to put it on my newsletter. And then you go to the Rotary website and you go to My Rotary, and then you go to Brand Center, and then you just get lost in the it's a lot. Over and over again, we do what Claire just said, and we go to Google and put Rotary International 2020-21 theme JPEG. And then it takes you to the right spot in the website. So someone told me that trick. It helps a lot. Any other questions?
I don't see any, but
Okay.
does anybody else have a question?
How about if I just tell you thank you very much for spending your evening learning about something that's not always thought of as the most exciting thing about belonging to Rotary, but I think hugely necessary. And so I mean this. Thank you very much for taking the effort to learn more, because it doesn't just help you, it helps your club, and that can only help our cause. So thanks.
Thanks, Tina, for a great presentation. Everybody have a great evening. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.